What is up, nerds? My name is Jeremy Akers, Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I want to talk to you about one of my absolute favorite liberating structures, purpose to motherfucking practice, y'all. Purpose to practice. What makes purpose to practice so goddamn dope? Purpose to practice is what we call the minimum specification to do what I like to call the front half of the eco cycle. By focusing, very often purpose is related to this vision of what we want to move away from, what we want to move towards to. So purpose to me comes from creative destruction. After purpose, we focus on our principles. And then we, because those are our seeds, right? The thing that's going to help us germinate and sprout our seeds are our principles, the simple rules we must follow in order to be successful in our purpose. Sometimes though, we get stuck in a scarcity trap with some poverty dynamics around participants. We don't have the labor, we don't have the hearts and minds and hands of humans to help us do the goddamn thing the way that we believe it should be done. And, and what can cause, even if we have the people, what can cause us to have a failure to launch and where do we see so many projects stillborn? Yeah, you guessed it, a lack of structure. A lack of structure. And of course, we do have ourselves a growth path, a journey to maturity. And we call that journey to maturity practices. It's a practice, because even our known state is a hypothesis, right? And how we're going to get there, it's usually got more question marks than answers. Those are practices too. So, how do we min-spec the hell out of purpose to practice? Purpose to practice we use to set ourselves up with some good foundations, right? And we're going to do that by focusing on only the essentials, the absolute minimum specifications. This is my suggestion, that as quick as possible, you get yourself a back of the napkin sketch on your purpose to practice and leave that up for another day. You're going to do that by getting in a group of 6 or so. Not the most innovative pattern in the world, but have somebody host the conversation, ensure that everybody gets to answer each one of these 6 questions. Have somebody dedicated as a scribe that's going to take notes on the input of everybody else. And set yourself a time box of approximately 1 minute per person. So in this instance, 6 minutes. In 6 minutes, we're going to go through each one of these questions. And we're going to get the scribe for something on the board. And times 5 questions in just 30 minutes, you will have answered purpose to practice and have just the essentials. Dump those answers, dump those notes into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever large language model you like, and literally ask them the question, hey, what makes this work important to us in our wider community? That's the question for purpose. What rules must we follow in order to realize our purpose? Those are our principles. Who must be included in order to achieve our purpose? Those are our participants. And our structures. How must we organize on both the micro and macro scales as well as distribute control in order to achieve our purpose? And practices. What are we going to do? What will we offer our users and clients, and how will we go about doing it? Those are our practices. Like I said, in just 30 minutes, you'll have yourself an alpha version, and that is good enough for now and safe enough to move on in most instances. If, and sometimes you do, need a little bit more fidelity, need more resolution, more detail, what I suggest is instead of gathering together in that group of 6 and having a scribe type of thing, so you make use of the pattern 1, 2, 4, all. Do 1, 2, 4 all on this question. What makes our work important to us and our wider community? Go through it once to get some ideas on the board, and go through it a second time just to harden those initial ideas into the most essential. In just 30 minutes, you and all of your colleagues will have answered this question. And again, good enough for now, safe enough to move on. Do that times each question, and you will be done in 2.5 hours. You will have more detail and more interaction, like 5 times as much detail and 5 times as much interaction, conceivably, as doing it with the discovery action dialogue sort of setup. And that will give you a whole lot more resolution, more fidelity. Now, sometimes we start off with this low resolution version, right? And we need some more detail. Sometimes, though, we may find ourselves in a situation where we need even more detail than that. If and only if you do that, you find yourself needing more detail, then I suggest that you get yourself some more detail. Take some more time. Go for it. Do your 2-day offsite or onsite or whatever site, and use yourself a specific liberating structure like 9 whys, drawing together wicked questions, what, so what, now what, or critical uncertainties to answer this question. Use them all if you really want to go apeshit. Go for it. This is more of a Min-Spec type of vibe. Use these structures to answer this question. You'll have a good time. Again, if you need even more detail, use something like appreciative interviews, Min-Specs, 2510 crowdsourcing, conversation cafe, and agreement certainty matrix in order to answer this question. You take yourself an unlimited amount of time, however much detail and resolution you need, that gets you to the point where you go, yes, I think we got what we need. We know what we were missing on those previous runs, and we've got it. We've got it. We have learned a lot since that last time. We've had to pivot a couple times, and now this is the guy. Cool, awesome, great. For our participants, if we need more resolution, more fidelity, make use of the classic social network webbing. Go out into the field and observe your reality with simple ethnography. Do a really brief sort of team checkup, with a star. Make use of what I need from you and get some requests on the board from these people, or hold space with an open space technology. Those will all help you to define who your participants are. With regards to structures, plug in with Henri's meeting macro structures. Google that shit. Make use of Triz to identify what structures we don't want to fall into. Make some requests of each other. Ask yourself what's at the intersection of integration and autonomy that you would like to lean into. Make a plan with Henri's meeting macro structures, Google that shit again, and a design storyboard. Or use some network patterning cards to, pick and choose what ways of organization make sense for your task or your environment at both the small scale and large scale. And last but not least, if you need yourself some more detail, use something along the lines of critical uncertainties to map out the scenarios and the path from your current scenario to your ideal, and understand, what are we going to do? How are we going to go about doing it? Take a look at using eco-cycle planning or panarchy, again, to find yourself a very high resolution answer to the question of, what are we going to do? What are we going to offer folks? And how are we going to go about doing it? Get as much detail as you need. These are also great tools. Chaotic stepping stones. You can see a lot of overlap between purpose to practice. But you know what? It adds a whole bunch of shit. And maybe you won't need this shit. But if you find yourself in a complex environment where you aren't sure what exactly you're going to do, and you sure as shit don't have a clear idea about how you're going to go about doing it, you may need all this extra stuff. So make use of chaotic stepping stones to address that complexity. You might find yourself in a team where you want to get some flow out of that team. So, notice that there's a lot of overlap between purpose to practice and these models. But there's always some extra stuff bolted on there too that could be essential to getting into a state of flow with your team. Maybe you need more than the Min-Specs. Maybe you need some safety and some open communication. So, what are the principles that you need to follow to get yourself those things so that you guys can all get into a hell of a vibe together? Or maybe it's structures that are required to help you stick the landing on those. Who knows? I probably do, but you don't. Deal with it. Team Canvas. Team Canvas is legion. Scrum Masters and Agilists love Team Canvas. Notice your overlap between the purpose to practice and a bunch of other stuff as well. And structure, well, you're probably just going to use Scrum. Good enough. And of course, if you strip things down to just the basic, just the essential, you notice you got yourself some purpose, you've got yourself some principles, you've got yourself some structures, some participants, and some practices. This, my good nerds, is purpose to practice. The Min-Spec and only the most essential for you and all of your friends. This has been a Wise Crowd production. My name is Jeremy Akers, Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. I want to thank you for your time, attention, and energy. And I want you to go out there, put something on the back of the napkin, and get learning, nerds.